You are listening to the Fantasy IPA podcast.
Can't wait. It's time to go eat, baby.
Your audio hangout for the latest intel, projections, and analytics.
Hey, we are playing to win. I'm in a league of my own. They ain't ready for me.
Visit us at fantasyipa.com and follow us on Twitter at fantasy_IPA.
Let's do this.
And welcome to the Week 3 edition of the Fantasy IPA podcast. I'm your host, Art Richardson, and I'm joined by Jamey Black. Jamey, another crazy week in the NFL for Week 3. Any high-level thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, early in the NFL season, it's usually pretty crazy and unpredictable. I think things start getting back to normal once the bye weeks kick in. Week 4 happens almost every year. But, at least one or two of the first 3 weeks are pretty wild. So it wasn't too bad this week, but I think we'll get back to normal next week.
Yeah, not quite the bloodbath we saw in Week 2, but you mentioned the bye weeks, which are right around the corner, so that makes these types of episodes very vital as we're scouring the waiver wires and looking for those buy lows and sell highs. And so that gives me an opportunity to talk about the new format. And today we're going to be starting off with an injury roundup of those players that either got injured during the on Sunday or during the week. See what the latest status is on those so that we can continue to monitor them. Then we're going to jump into our waiver wire content where we'll be talking about our priority ads as well as deep league ads. We'll wrap up the show by going into some buy low, sell high, hold or release type questions where we'll talk about some of those situations where you may be looking to sell high if someone coming off of a good week or buy low for someone who just hasn't got it into gear. But we'll try to hit on some of the most thought-provoking situations and players within the league as it pertains to that. Starting with the Thursday game, which seems like forever ago, and Jacoby Brissett at the quarterback position. He injured his thumb in the Thursday night contest, but it turned out to be only a sprain, and he should be available this week, according to the latest updates. Although he may not be needed as Garoppolo is looking to return. Brissett would only be an option in 2 QB or Superflex leagues if he were to start. Moving on to the Sunday games, we had Cam Newton, who twisted his ankle. He was able to finish out the game. Latest news after Monday evaluation states that Cam feels good and is ready to go, so Cam Newton looks to continue his Iron Man ways. At this point, no reason for concern with Cam. Russell Wilson, who's been oft injured in the early parts of this year, suffered an MCL sprain in his left knee. He'll wear a brace if he plays this week. He'll be evaluated as the week goes along. I definitely at this point think he's looking to play, but this will limit his mobility, and there may be better options out there. Moving to the running back. Last night in the Sunday night game, we saw Jeremy Langford get carted off. It turned out to only be a sprained ankle, but it seems to be of the high sprain variety, as latest I've seen is that he'll be out for 4 to 6 weeks. Moving on, one of the bigger mysteries was Ryan Matthews, who played just 8 snaps before leaving the game. The things that I've been reading is his ankle had stiffened up, ankle he's been struggling with since training camp. Although he hasn't been on the injury report, he has been struggling with that through weeks 1, 2, and 3. But he will get a week to heal up during the bye, an extra week, I should say. And I'm not even sure it matters after they had quite a few running backs showing production over there. I think I would be less worried about the injury, more worried about what that split's going to look like after some players like Barner and Smallwood showed up. Once again, we'll talk more about those guys in a little bit. Coming out today, running back Shane Vereen in an already thin backfield there in New York suffered a torn tricep. So looks like he's on IR, which means he'll miss at least the next 8 weeks. So he could be back in time for some fantasy playoff football, but at this point, he can be dropped in leagues that are not super deep. Moving on to wide receiver, Des Bryant had a very scary-looking tweak to his knee. X-rays were negative, and he was able to return to the game. even pulling in a late touchdown reception. The latest news that I've read is that he's going for an MRI today. As of this recording, I have not seen any updates to that. Marquise Goodwin, who was supposed to be the feature with Sammy Watkins out this week, actually was in and out of the game, but no concrete news on whether he was injured or not, but something to monitor, definitely in deep leagues if you're a Marquise Goodwin owner. Eli Rogers also suffered a toe injury. He was not able to return. Once again, he's flying into the bucket of being evaluated on Monday. Once again, no updates as of this recording. Torrey Smith appeared to tweak a leg late in the game on Sunday. He'll be evaluated further on Monday. Moving on to the tight ends, Jordan Cameron is in the league's concussion protocol. This is especially interesting because of his history with concussion. So keep an eye on that situation. Deion Sims would look to be the beneficiary if Cameron misses any time. Jared Cook had an injury to his ankle, actually left the stadium in walking boots and crutches. It is the same ankle that he had surgery on in June. Looks like it could turn into a multi-week injury, which may actually be the best for you Jared Cook owners, as he was not putting up playable fantasy numbers anyways. Moving on to Eric Ebron. He played despite a sore back, but then suffered an ankle injury midway through the game. Spent the balance of the contest on the sidelines there. Once again, another player that they're evaluating on Monday. No update at the time of this recording. Tight end Vance McDonald. He suffered one of the tricky hip injuries, so he's also being evaluated today. No update as of now. Okay, so that's going to do it for the injury roundup. Make sure you're monitoring and checking back during the week. We're going to go ahead and jump into the waiver wire column. Jamey, we're going to start with quarterbacks and priority ads. The first two guys you have on the priority ads list is Ryan Tannehill and Joe Flacco. What do you got on them?
Yeah, well, Tannehill's been playing very well this season. He even played well that first week in Seattle. I mean, if you remember, he would have had another 50-ish, 40, 50-yard touchdown pass if Stills didn't drop the ball. And he had a rushing touchdown in that game as well. And then in back-to-back weeks against New England, Cleveland, he's put up big numbers. He was a top 10 quarterback in 2014, and with Adam Gase in town and Devontae Parker coming on, he very well could be a top 10 quarterback again this year. So yeah, if somehow he's out on a waiver wire right now, you got to grab him. And then Flacco didn't have a particularly good week 3, but his schedule. My God. Next 6 games, he's got Oakland, Washington, the Giants, who are playing better, the Jets, who are surprisingly not playing well, and then Pittsburgh and Cleveland. So he's got some juicy matchups there, and Baltimore's not running the ball right now. So Flacco's slinging around pretty well. I expect him to keep it up. I think right now he's got strong quarterback 2 value, and if you pick him up as a streaming option over the next month or so, he could put up quarterback 1 numbers easy.
Yeah, it's not always pretty with Tannehill, but he seems to be getting into more of a rhythm in that Gase offense. And then Flacco on the 3-0 Baltimore Ravens. Ugliest 3-0, I think, in the league. But, that Trestman offense, and he's just really spreading it around to a lot of different options in the passing game. Perriman looks to be improving very slowly, so I do like Flacco, and a lot of that is based on what you said, which is his schedule. Rounding out the priority ads, Jamey, we've got Carson Wentz, the very impressive rookie, and Sam Bradford. What do you have on these guys?
Well, now that I've seen Wentz play 3 full games, I mean, this guy's, there's not really much else to say other than, he's the real deal. He's poised. He's one of those guys. He's not going to make mistakes. He's kind of pro-ready. I don't want to compare him to Ben Roethlisberger because they're very different players, but Roethlisberger in the NFL is a pro-ready type guy, and Wentz, I'm buying it. He's pro-ready, and also after the Week 4 bye, he gets Detroit and Washington in back-to-back weeks. So, golly, fire him up if you have him. If you need a quarterback, have someone on bye. Green Bay, and Minnesota can't run the ball right now, and then travels to Carolina and beats Carolina, and didn't put up huge numbers against Carolina, but he played a good game, and I think Bradford is as healthy as he's been in years now, and mentally, the game's slowing down for him, and he's in a North Turner offense where he's going to get to throw to the tight end and the running backs, and then also Diggs is a nice weapon to have. So Bradford's out there, grab him.
All right, let's move into the deep or large roster leagues. And remember, these deep pickups in the quarterback category are generally going to be in your 2 QB and Superflex leagues. Trevor Siemian had over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns against what we thought was a pretty tough defense over there in Cincinnati. He's definitely worth considering in 2 QB leagues. Dak Prescott, who is steady, mistake-free, running the Cowboys, and I think that along with the rushing bonuses that he gives you, looking like he's going to start throwing some more touchdowns. Brian Hoyer, obviously this is pending Josh McCown's health, but Hoyer came in, maybe akin to a lot of garbage time play, but once again, in 2 QB leagues, you'll take it. Even Cody Kessler, who wasn't terrible against Miami, definitely an option in 2 QB leagues. And then lastly, our preemptive pickup of the week is going to be Colin Kaepernick. And it is based on the fact that Blaine Gabbert just hasn't really taken control of that offense. So keep an eye on that situation. Not sure how much better Kaepernick is going to be, but once again, in those Superflex leagues, every quarterback is definitely rosterable and startable on given weeks. Let's move into the running backs, Jamey. In your priority ads, your top 4, you've got Kristen Michael, Jerick McKinnon, Charles Sims, and Jordan Howard.
Well, last week when I mentioned Michael, I talked about how well he was playing. He was outplaying Rawls, and just because I've been burned by him in the past, I said I wasn't quite 100% sold yet, but I'm sold now, man. I mean, the light bulb finally came on for him, and he's clearly the best running back in Seattle right now. And if the coaches want to be stubborn and keep playing Rawls, they're going to have to wait a few weeks because it looks like he's going to miss some time. So if Michael's out there, and he might be, grab him. He's definitely going to be worth it. Jerick McKinnon, he technically didn't get the start this week, but he is going to be the lead back in Minnesota now. It's sad to see AP go down. I was looking forward to seeing him play for another year or two. One of the best running backs, in the history of the game. But now it's looks like it's going to be McKinnon's turn. He certainly looks athletic. He's got the high spark score. Everyone's talked about how explosive he is. I do think Asiata is going to hurt him a little bit, taking away some goal line carries. But McKinnon's a guy to grab right now. He's definitely worth picking up. That Minnesota line will get better. They should run the ball better. Charles Sims, against the Rams, 124 yards and a touchdown on 19 touches this week. As long as Martin's down, Sims is a running back 1, and he should be owned. And then Jordan Howard, I think most people probably watched that Sunday night game. He totaled over 90 yards and 13 touches. And some of it was garbage time, but hey, Langford's terrible. I mean, we've watched Langford play. He looks bad. I think I really do see this offense. I see the running back trending toward Howard. So if he's available, I would grab him now.
A couple notes on Jerick McKinnon. He did get 16 carries and 2 targets in the passing game. So anytime you can grab a running back that's getting over 15 touches a game, that's going to be good. And by the way, it was against a very tough Carolina defense. So I think there's good things coming from McKinnon. So let's move on to your next set of priority ads, Jamey. We've got Kenneth Dixon, Wendell Smallwood, Cameron Artis-Payne, and Orleans Darkwa.
Well, for Dixon, not much to say. Baltimore running backs, terrible. At Dixon, he's going to get a shot. So Smallwood, I think the situation in Philadelphia right now, the running back situation, is a little murky. Ryan Matthews hasn't been playing as well as they want. He's punched ball in the end zone, I think 3 times so far, but other than that, he hasn't been great. And then Smallwood comes in and plays really well against Pittsburgh. The eyeball test, he passed it. He looks like the best running option they have, but they could have, at the same time, they could have been resting Matthews because they have a week 4 bye, and his ankle's been giving him problems supposedly the entire season. So we'll see how that goes. But I don't see how, even if Matthews heals up, they keep Smallwood out of that backfield. So grab him. Cameron Artis-Payne, I think just as we suspected, he's going to be the lead back while Stewart's out. And so he's definitely worth a short-term grab, as Carolina has a pretty good running offense. As long as Stewart it misses, and Stewart does have that long injury history, so definitely want to keep an eye on that. Orleans Darkwa, I think he probably becomes a must-add right now in all formats. Jennings was banged up in missed week 3, and Vereen had a great game, but now Vereen could be out for the rest of the season, and he's at least going to be out for, 8 weeks or so. So, Darkwa, we saw him. He played okay last year when he got a chance. Right now, in a really good offense, grab Darkwa if he's out there, and you need to run back home.
All right, let's round out the priority ads, Jamey. You've got Dwayne Washington, Bilal Powell, and Matt Asiata.
Yeah, in Washington, this week playing Green Bay came into this game giving up 1.8 yards per rush to running backs, and I think they held Riddick to that as well, even though they were missing some starters. Riddick's the back right now to own in Detroit, obviously, but he's probably owned in most leagues. Washington, though, he's going to have a role. He had 10 carries. He split the carries in a game where they were down fast and early. So I envision Washington getting 10 carries plus per week and goal line work. So anytime a guy like that gets touches in an offense like Detroit, he's definitely worth grabbing. Powell, looks like, all season long, or all preseason, I'm sorry, everyone thought about how Powell was going to take touches away from Forte, and he hasn't until this week. He was very involved in the receiving game. I think that the Jets do plan on using Forte primarily as the running back, but I do think they're going to get Powell more involved in the receiving game, and we saw last year what he could do, and he had 7 targets, 6 catches for 41 yards, and then he added 30 more rushing in week 3, so not bad. Matt Asiata, I mentioned earlier, AP's done for the year. Asiata technically got the start. Yeah, McKinnon's the back that you probably want to grab, but Asiata's still going to get some touches, and he's probably going to be the goal line back there. So, in an offense that traditionally has run the ball well, Asiata, if you need help at running back, could definitely be someone that you could benefit from by picking up.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add on Dwayne Washington is that he and Riddick saw the same amount of carries at 10, although Washington was more effective with 38 yards to Riddick's 9. So keep an eye on how Riddick's doing as far as the running game, and those tough run defenses that don't give you much space. Washington may be the one to play over there as it pertains to non-PPR leagues. All right, moving into the deep league and large rosters. We've got a couple Miami Dolphins here with Jay Ajayi and Kenyon Drake. It doesn't look like anyone's going to emerge as somebody that's getting a lot of consistent touches over here. They actually split it up between Ajayi, Drake, Isaiah Peed, and Damian Williams last week. So keep an eye on it, but in deep leagues, it's worth putting these guys at the end of your bench to see if they can emerge, and I would prioritize Ajayi and Drake over the other two. DeAndre Washington, while there's no doubt that he's looking good, he's still part of that three-headed monster, so keep an eye on that, and good to have on your bench, especially in case of an injury. Kenjon Barner, you talked about how they spread it out last week, the Philadelphia Eagles, that is, against Pittsburgh, and he looked good. In Indianapolis, you've got Robert Turbin and Josh Ferguson, or Turb Ferguson. So keep an eye on those guys to see how Frank Gore is holding up under his workload. And then lastly, purely handcuffs, Mike Gillislee to LaShawn McCoy, who looks like their offense might get a little kickstart with the turnover over there. And then Bobby Rainey, just because that passing down role in New York may be up for grabs with Green going out. So keep an eye on these guys and put them on your roster in those deep, large roster leagues. Let's move into wide receiver, Jamey, where your first four guys are Terrell Pryor, Victor Cruz, Steve Smith, and Cole Beasley.
Well, Terrell Pryor, we all saw he had a huge game this week. He played quarterback, he played running back, he played receiver, and put up a ton of yards. He had 8 catches for 144 and a touchdown, I believe, and that was on 14 targets. So I mean, he's a must-add right now. He's even when Gordon comes back, you're gonna have to play Pryor in this offense, especially now with Coleman down. Victor Cruz, I mentioned him last week. I'll mention him again. He didn't have a huge week 3. He played better week 2, but still, just watching the game in that offense, he's going to be involved. He's going to be a borderline wide receiver 2 this year, I think. At the very worst, he's going to be a low end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3, but he should be owned right now in all formats, and I really do think that we're going to see him more involved as the year goes on, so pick him up if he's available. Steve Smith Sr., finally someone not named Mike Wallace, or a receiver not named Mike Wallace, had a productive day in Baltimore. And we all know that Smith is a guy that isn't going away and hasn't gone away, so until he does, like the solid player he is, he's not quite what he used to be, but he's definitely worth picking up if he's out there right now and you need help at receiver. And then Cole Beasley, I mentioned him last week, and I'll mention him one more time. And he's not a fluke. It's not going away. He's only 5 receivers coming into tonight's game had more catches in the NFL than Beasley. He was around top 20 or 22nd in receiving yards in the NFL. He's top up there in targets as well. He needs to be owned right now in all PPR leagues and probably started in many weeks. And then he should probably be owned in most standard leagues right now as well.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add, Jamey, is you mentioned Terrell Pryor's big day, but his touchdown actually came on the ground where he got 4 attempts for 21 yards, and you saw him playing some quarterback. He also got some passing yards, so
yeah,
nothing more exciting than seeing your wide receiver slot lining up at quarterback. So Terrell Pryor definitely the must-add this week. Let's move on to the second half of your priority ads, where you've got Tyrell Williams, Jamison Crowder, Adam Humphries, and Robert Woods.
Well, Williams again. I think he was on here last week. We talked about him, and I said that he's got big playability. He doesn't really even need a ton of targets to make an impact, but this week he did. He led the Chargers in targets and receptions, and right now with the targets, or with the Chargers banged up, with Allen out and Woodhead out, Williams is going to be a part of this offense every week. So he should probably be picked up in every league, all formats, and I would consider him a wide receiver 3 right now with upside, definitely upside for more. Crowder, Jamison Crowder, he's a guy that last year as a rookie, he caught around 60 passes for over 600 yards, I believe. I think right now he's on pace for 85 catches, 900, and he's already matched his rookie total in touchdowns with 2. I'm not saying he's going to have that big of a year because they're obviously trying to get Doxson involved, but until they do, Crowder's someone who should probably be owned. He should definitely be owned in PPR leagues. Right now, thus far in the season, he's already at 25 targets, 16 catches in 3 games, and he's had 7+ targets, 4+ catches in each game. Adam Humphries, very involved this year. He's had 20 targets and 15 catches over the last 2 weeks. He's tied for the 11th in the NFL with 18 catches coming into tonight's game. And he's second in targets, catches, and yards on the Buccaneers team right now. So he should probably be picked up in all PPR formats. 9 catches for 100 yards against a Rams team. And Vincent Jackson hasn't shown anything this year. Severus Jenkins was cut this week, so Humphries is going to have a role. If you need help at receiver, especially in PPR league, definitely worth picking up. And then Robert Woods, he's solid enough to put up wide receiver 3 numbers, even with Watkins in the lineup. I think, and their offense definitely did rebound after week 2, the firing of their offensive coordinator, and maybe they're going to get back on track now. Who knows? But if Robert Woods is out there and you need help at receiver, not a bad guy to grab right now.
Yeah. Only thing I'd add is Tyrell Williams. If you watch him play, the speed, the size, he's going to have a blow-up game here, but it's nice to have him right now as a wide receiver 3. But just watch out for him. I think he's going to have a big game coming soon. Jamison Crowder, you mentioned that he's on a pretty good pace right now, and that pace is actually a little stunted in the sense that Kirk Cousins, I think 2 weeks in a row, has missed him on wide-open touchdown passes. So keep an eye on Crowder, who's been very solid, and to me, it looks like he's taking that next step as a wide receiver. Moving on to deep league and large rosters, we've got Seth Roberts, who, like in week 1, made the most of his targets and got into the end zone. Rashard Matthews, while the exotic smash mouth experiment continues, Rashard Matthews does look to be getting more involved as defenses start to shift a little more coverage over to Sharp. He did lead the team with 8 targets in week 3. Sammy Coates, just because he's with Big Ben and he's got that any given game he can pop off for one of those long touchdowns with Big Ben, buying time in the backfield. And then very, very deep leagues look for Kenny Britt, although they're in a kind of an anemic offense over there. Someone's got to catch the ball. And then lastly, Kenny Stills, if he was dropped, he's worth adding in deep league rosters. Once again, that Miami offense is starting to get in rhythm with Gase over there. So keep an eye on him, Kenny Stills, who's flashed wherever he's been, albeit inconsistent. Let's move on to the tight ends. Jamey, your top 4 are Kyle Rudolph, Jimmy Graham, Cameron Brate, and Zach Miller.
Yeah, Kyle Rudolph, he started off playing well this year, even with Bridgewater, and now he's played well with Bradford, and I think Bradford's elevated his game even more. He had 7 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown this week, and just watching him play, he looks better. And for those of you that remember, 2 or 3 years ago, Rudolph was supposed to be the next top 5 tight end in fantasy. It never happened. It could be happening now. So I definitely think he should be picked up if he's available. Jimmy Graham is Jimmy Graham. So I say don't get overly excited because of the injury and how long it took Victor Cruz to return from that injury. But you can't ignore 100 yards and a touchdown at halftime, even if it was against San Francisco. Cameron Brate, well, I mentioned earlier, Tampa Bay released Austin Severus Jenkins this past week, and Brate is now the tight end. So 10 targets this week, 5 catches for 46 yards and 2 touchdowns against a Rams defense that is usually very good against the tight end. So pick Brate up if he is available right now on your waiver wire. He's probably someone in deeper leagues that you could even flex on bye weeks, since we have bye weeks coming up. Zach Miller, Sunday Night Football, finally targeted 9 times, and that was with Hoyer. So if Miller's available, grab him now. He just had a little slow start to the season, but he looks back in form.
Yeah, Kyle Rudolph is looking very good. He has teased us before, but there's just a different feel to his game now. Jimmy Graham, really good to see him get into the end zone, and those terrible patellar tendon injuries. It's nice to see Graham and Cruz coming back from them, and it's almost unprecedented at this point. So happy for those guys. And then Zach Miller, I think you mentioned that showing pretty good rapport with Brian Hoyer there. So, keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on the quarterback situation. But it looks like Miller and Hoyer are vibing, and as long as that's going on, you'll want to start him as a tight end 1. But moving on to round out the priority ads, Jamey, you've got Dennis Pitta, Jack Doyle, and Hunter Henry.
Yeah, Dennis Pitta, after having a strong week 2, he showed up in week 3 with 7 more targets and 6 more catches, I believe. So he's obviously going to be involved in that offense, and they're going to pass the ball. So pick him up if he's available, especially if you need tight end help. Jack Doyle, it's hard to what my eyes are seeing, and I don't want to believe it, but the numbers speak for themselves. He's involved every single week, and again this week, 6 catches. I don't remember the exact number of yards. It was over 60 yards, and with Andrew Luck at quarterback and their defense being just in shambles right now, they're going to throw the balls, and Doyle's going to be involved, especially while Moncrief is hurt. Hunter Henry, pretty impressive stats for his first ever NFL start. 5 catches. He was targeted 5 times, caught all of them for 76 yards in week 3, albeit against Indianapolis defense, but still, he's worth a short-term grab if you need help. Now, he has a great matchup in week 4 against New Orleans. It doesn't get any better. I believe New Orleans gives up more points per games to tight end than Gronk scores. So that's big. If it looks like Gates might miss another week, so Henry's a great streaming option week 4.
Yeah, great to see Dennis Pitta recovering from that injury that many thought was going to end his career. So that's becoming a nice theme in this waiver wire edition. Jack Doyle, 1 game is a data point. 3 games is definitely a trend. So pick him up if he hasn't already been picked up in your leagues. And Hunter Henry, the tight end of the future, could be the tight end of now, depending on Gates' health. And, truthfully, Gates wasn't really lighting the world on fire, so we'll see if they get Hunter Henry more involved over there. Moving on to the deep leagues and large rosters, we've got Jason Morrow with Delaney Walker missing with that hamstring injury. Amaro actually had quite a nice game over there, considering he was just picked up not long ago. Ryan Griffin, who garbage time helped him last week, but anytime you see 10 targets to a tight end, you've got to pay attention. So take a look at Ryan Griffin in those tight end premium leagues where the waiver wire is devoid of tight ends. One of our favorites, Jamey, Deion Sims with Jordan Cameron in the concussion protocol. I'm very, very excited to see Deion Sims get a chance to hopefully get some more targets over there in that Gase offense. Also, Richard Rodgers. This one's going to be slightly dependent on what we hear around Jared Cook, who, as mentioned earlier, did leave in a walking boot and crutches and has had problems with that ankle that he injured on Sunday. And I'm going to add him here. We didn't have him on our list, but I'll go ahead and throw Austin Seferian-Jenkins on here, who did get claimed on waivers by the New York Jets. Now, definitely wouldn't pick him up thinking that you may start him anytime in the next couple of weeks. But once again, in those tight end premium leagues with deep rosters, probably worth a stash, because if anyone can get something out of him, although Chan Gailey doesn't necessarily favor the tight end, he does favor athletic freaks, and that's what Safarian Jameson's is. So that's going to do it for the waiver wire. Make sure that you check out the column that we'll be posting on the site at fantasyipa.com. But we're going to move on to a new section where we're going to talk about buy low candidates, sell high candidates, people that you want to hold on to, and or people that you just want to drop. So I'm going to go through certain players and certain situations and get your take, Jamey. We're going to start with Kelvin Benjamin. So Kelvin Benjamin came out in week 1 and 2 on fire, but in week 3 he only had one target, putting up a goose egg for fantasy owners. So how do you see Kelvin Benjamin, Jamey? Buy low, sell high, hold, or not releasing him?
No, you're not releasing him. I think you're holding him. I still see him as the number 1 wide receiver he is there in Carolina. He's great talent. We saw what he did in Denver to open the season. One thing I think is worth mentioning is Minnesota has a really good defense this year. So I wouldn't make too big a deal out of it. I think it was just one of those weeks. At the same time, his stock took a little hit. So if you were going to sell high, last week would have been the time to do it. Right now, hang on to him. Definitely don't panic and sell him for anything less than a high-end wide receiver 1 or something.
Yeah, I agree. I think you got to hold on to Benjamin. I don't see him putting up another goose egg, and I don't even think you'll get the discount right now as far as buying low. So, all right, Jamey, Todd Gurley came through with 2 touchdowns this weekend, but he's still in an offense with Case Keenum at quarterback and Jeff Fisher as the coach, and really lackluster wide receiver core. He's only averaging 2.9 yards a carry. Is now the time to sell high on Todd Gurley coming off a 2-touchdown game?
This sounds crazy, but maybe. If for those in redraft leagues, if you can get something high end for him, if you need help at receiver, like Julio Jones is off to a slow start, for instance, maybe you do sell high, and that sounds crazy to say with Todd Gurley, but that offense is they're going to struggle this year, I think. And dynasty formats, Gurley's someone you're never selling, you're holding on to right now. But you're probably not going to be able to get someone like David Johnson or Zeke for him. But if you can somehow manage something, Hopkins and Julio Jones are off to slow starts, for instance, and if you have a couple other good running backs and you could get something like that in a redraft league, I might consider doing that.
Yeah, I actually agree here, and I'm a huge fan of Gurley, but I just don't see that offense getting any better. He will have his weeks where he gets in the end zone and has big weeks, but I think I'd prefer. You mentioned a couple wide receivers, but I'll even go into like the running back ranks where if you can cash in on that name cachet that Gurley has, there are some options out there in better offenses that also may be struggling. If you can get like a Le'Veon Bell, maybe even a Mark Ingram, I say now might be the time to move Gurley. But don't sell him short. Don't go for anything beyond like a wide receiver 1 or a running back 1, because even though he is struggling, any running back that's getting 20 touches a game is worth holding on to. Let's move to our next one, who's also a running back in Carlos Hyde. He had one bad week sandwiched between 2 good weeks. This week he had quite a outing versus the Seahawks, scoring 2 touchdowns, although some of it was in garbage time. But Jamey, is now the time to sell high on Carlos?
Well, in redraft leagues, he's had 2 really big weeks, so it's kind of the same as Gurley. Carlos Hyde, I don't think you could get something for Hyde the way you would for Gurley. He just doesn't have that pedigree yet. But if you can get someone worth, I would say Ingram or better at running back, then sell high.
Let's move on to Stephon Diggs, who's he's a tough one in the sense that we saw him flash last year and put up a good stretch of games. He came out on fire in the first 2 weeks, I think he may start to draw a little more attention. He was playing against a tough Panther defense, but he only put up a 4 for 40 stat line. What are you doing with Stephon Diggs? Are you holding on to him? Are you looking to sell?
I think I'm holding on to him right now, especially coming off a bad game for him. With Bradford coming in, just learning the offense, that he had a huge game against Green Bay. I expect to see Diggs continue to put up big numbers. I'm probably hanging on to him.
All right, let's move on to Emmanuel Sanders, where Trevor Siemian shocked us all by putting up 4 touchdowns, 2 of those going to Sanders. Now, Sanders in week 1 and week 2 did not break double digits in PPR, but he did put up 32 this past week. So what are you doing with Emmanuel Sanders? Is now the time to sell on him?
If using his name and the week that he just had, if you can get something worth the value that he carried last year, for instance, then I would sell high. I don't think we're going to see a lot of games like that from Sanders. I really don't. Or from Siemian, but I think if you can get someone that is buying off of Sanders' value from last year and week 3, I'd say sell high.
Yeah, I see him as a sell high candidate as well. Like, if you can get someone who's been solid, like a Jeremy Maclin, I think I would actually move Sanders in the sense that there may be more 5 or 6 point games coming in the future. I just can't see Siemian putting up those numbers. Let's move on, and now we're going to move to some of the situations where we'll talk about 2 different players. And we touched on it earlier, Jamey, the Seattle situation where Michael showed up big with 2 rushing touchdowns, 105 yards, a couple receptions. Comes out that Rawls' injury was worse than thought, even a hairline fracture that could cause him to miss multiple weeks. So what are you doing with Christine Michael? And then after that, what are you doing with Thomas Rawls?
Well, I'm hanging on to Michael right now, and as I mentioned earlier, he's the best running back in Seattle, and he has to be considered that, even if the coaches aren't saying it. And the light bulb's finally come on for this guy. This guy is a freak of nature as well when it comes to athleticism, his spark numbers and whatever. So, Christian Michael, you want to grab him, get him in your lineup. If he starts getting 20 touches a game, I think he's going to have big games. Rawls, to be honest, I'm concerned at this point. There was a lot of preseason talk about his ankle, and last year he maybe didn't get enough touches to really see what kind of running back he was. I do think he is a good running back. I'm just not sure what's going on right now. So with Rawls, I would be concerned.
Yeah, if Pete Carroll does hold to that spirit of open competition, Michael's definitely looked like the better back, and it's showing up in the stat sheet, and it's showing up in phrases like being shot out of a cannon. So it's possible that the guy that the fantasy community, has been waiting on might finally be arriving. So I'm holding Michael as well. Let's talk about Charles Sims and Doug Martin. Sims coming off a good week. You talked about the all-purpose yards over there, where he had 55 on the ground and a touchdown, caught 6 of 8 passes for 69 yards. Martin is week to week, and you and I talked about how they've got a pretty tough schedule coming up with Denver, Carolina, the next 2 weeks. So how are you handling the Charles Sims and Doug Martin situation?
Yeah, the schedule is that's the key here. If it wasn't for the schedule, I would say, golly, fire Sims up right now. He's going to be a running back 1 every week. But against Denver and Carolina, those games are going to be a little bit tougher. With that said, Sims contributes in the passing game, and he's going to be heavily involved. If Martin misses, I would still start Sims. Unless you have better options. But if Martin misses, I still view Sims as a running back 2 against those tougher defenses. If Martin comes back, and I'm not sure, I think they said 3 weeks. I Williams down for a couple more weeks. I say, if you have better options, maybe play him. But, look at Sims right now against those tough defenses is a running back too.
Yeah, and, I'm going to put a little different spin on this, is that if I have Sims and I'm in a non-PPR league, I might actually be looking to sell high. But in a PPR league, he retains value no matter who the opponent is, and sometimes even more with those stout run defenses because they will utilize him more out of the backfield. So Sims is a split one for me. I say if you're in a non-PPR, now might be the time to sell, considering Martin's coming back and they've got a tough stretch. On Martin, you're not going to get much for him, so he's a hold for now. You got to be patient. I've seen him actually dropped in a couple leagues, which is not good. So make sure you're holding on to Martin, especially down the stretch where I don't recall who he's playing in 15 and 16, but one of those is the New Orleans Saints, so he's got some good playoff matchups, so hold on to Martin. Let's move back into the Pittsburgh backfield where, D'Angelo had stellar weeks in 1 and 2, struggled a bit in week 3, just in time for Le'Veon to come off a suspension. So what are you doing with this situation, Jamey?
Well, Le'Veon Bell, when he returns, he's going to be the guy. So, obviously, you want to get him and get him in your lineup. Le'Veon Bell he's going to catch passes, run the ball. He's going to be heavily involved. We saw it last year, just in the few games that he played when he came back. D'Angelo Williams, that's a tough one, and the reason is because Bell misses so many games, and Williams is so valuable when Bell's not there. He really is. He's a true running back one. But with that said, if Bell's on the field, and you can get something for D'Angelo Williams, you might want to do it now, because I'm pretty sure Bell's going to be the bell cow when healthy.
Yeah, I can't see them not giving the rock to Le'Veon as much as possible. Now, for D'Angelo, I agree that it might be a sell opportunity now, but I probably wouldn't take anything less than like a top 24 back, like a running back too, in the sense that you mentioned that Le'Veon and his running style kind of opens him up to injury. So, and if he does get injury, D'Angelo is a game winner, and a 25th ranked running back is not going to be a game or league winner for you. So he's actually one of the handcuffs that's worth hanging on to, just based on the upside he has if Le'Veon were to go back down. The next situation we're going to talk about, Jamey, is the Kansas City situation. Spencer Ware, after a really good week, has come back down to earth, although serviceable in his last 2 games. He had 20 for 75 in week 3, caught his only target. We're getting the company line from Andy Reid that there's a chance Charles may return. This one's tough for me, but what do you do with Spencer Ware and then Jamal Charles?
This is the hardest one by far, because Ware has played so well with Charles out, and Charles is on the wrong side of 30 now, and coming back from that second ACL injury. But at the same time, we're talking about a running back who's averaged over 5 yards a carry every year in his NFL career. So, golly, I would hate to say, sell Ware now and see, this Charles thing linger. So, I don't want to give any bad advice here. And I'm just going to say, hang on to Ware, because it looks like he's going to be involved. I don't see how they don't keep him involved as well as he's playing.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're actually both holds in the sense that you're not going to get proper value for Spencer Ware with Charles coming back in the near future. And Spencer Ware, I think he's going to be startable in the sense that if he's getting those goal line touches, which as much as I love Charles, the way Ware runs and sheds contact, you got to give him the ball down there. And then Charles, one of the highest yards per carry in history, and just electric, a threat to score anytime. he's another guy that you're not going to get proper value for right now. So you got to hold on to him and see how he comes out the gates. And it may take a little while, but it could pay off for you later in the year. Remember, it is not a sprint, it is a marathon, and we do go 15, 16 weeks into the season. We just wrapped up week 3, so hold on to Charles, who is a Hall of Fame talent. The last situation we're going to talk about, Jamey, is in Detroit, where Marvin Jones and Golden Tate are the receivers in question here. Marvin Jones, after 3 weeks, is the number 1 wide receiver in PPR, at least the one I looked up. Golden Tate had 11.3 in week 1, but he followed that up with a 3.3 fantasy day and a 7.3. That's good for 71st at wide receiver. I think Bolden, Riddick, and even Ebron all seem to be cutting into his production, and that he's got those very low depth of target opportunities over there. So we'll handle these two separately. Let's start with Marvin Jones. Obviously, if you're going to do something with him, it's going to be hold or sell high. Which one of those are you doing, Jamey?
It depends. It depends on how high can you sell or what can you get. I don't think Marvin Jones is going to be the number 1 or 2 receiver this year, but I don't think this is a fluke either. Marvin Jones is legitimately has a chance to be a top 10 receiver this year. And he's not, we're early in the season, so when you have a 200-yard, 2-touchdown game, your numbers are much more inflated. With that said, though, he's the number 1 target. He's the number 1 receiver in Detroit right now, hands down. I don't think there's any questioning that. Riddick might be targeted as much, but Jones is the number 1 receiver there. So if you can get something incredible for him, if someone wants to trade Hopkins or Jones because they're off to a slow start, I say go for it. Otherwise, hang on to him. He's going to keep putting numbers up.
Yeah, I definitely think he's a hold. And, it seems like Stafford, and we started hearing reports early that they had that rapport and he was his go-to guy. So I like you think he could finish as a wide receiver 1. I think probably towards the end of the wide receiver 1 tier, possibly into the high 2s, but definitely valuable, especially considering where you probably got him. Now, Golden Tate's a different story. Are you holding or releasing on Golden Tate?
You have to hold on. You have to hold him right now. I mean, unless you can get wide receiver 2 value maybe for him or something like that. Tate. I mean, he caught 90 passes last year, and 14 when Calvin Johnson missed those games. Tate was for 4 weeks. He was the number 2 or 3 receiver in the NFL. But he's not gonna return back to that top 15 area. And it's not just because of Jones, because hey, Calvin Johnson played on the other side of him. So it's not like Jones is doing anything better than Calvin. But I think that the biggest difference here is Ebron. And Ebron, to me, is clearly and we didn't get to post our pod last week, but I did say this. Jones and Ebron are the 2 playmakers in that offense right now in the passing game. And, Ebron had 8 targets this week, caught 5 for 70 yards or so before he left. And he's really eating into Tate's production. And then also Anquan Bolden that's just enough Tate's basically getting kind of pushed into wide receiver 3 range right now. So if you can get something like a low end wide receiver 2, I would say trading, but I don't think you're going to. So while his stock is this terribly low, holding because he will get better.
Yeah, I think for me, Tate it is droppable especially in 10-team leagues, but if he's the guy you've got to drop to go out and get Terrell Pryor, I say pull the trigger, send him to the waiver wire if you can't move him. So, I've seen enough, and you touched on the fact that there are now more options and that Stafford seems to be spreading it around in the post-Calvin era. And, with Bolden and Ebron going across the middle with those short targets as well as Theo Riddick out of the backfield, it's tough to drop somebody that you've invested probably a 4th or 5th round pick in, but at this point, draft position doesn't matter. I say if there's someone out there like a Terrell Pryor, I think he's actually cuttable. All right, Jamey, that's actually going to do it for our buy low, sell high, hold or release section. That's going to do it for this podcast. Any parting thoughts as we close up week 3?
Just a couple. It's week 3, so nobody panic. Art's panicking on Golden Tate. That's okay. No, just kidding. Tate is someone I could understand, but generally speaking, the guys that bring rises to the top. This happens every year in the NFL. The first 2 or 3 weeks, there's always at least 1 or 2 crazy weeks, and the NFL seems upside down. Everything goes back to normal once the buys start coming on, and veterans start getting their numbers. Everything balances out. So right now, hey, take advantage of the people that are panicking. If you have someone that you can sell high, some of the guys we mentioned earlier. Otherwise, just be smart and patient, and your studs will come around.
Yeah, be smart, be patient, be diligent. Make sure you're churning that last spot on your roster to someone that could hit and someone that could give value, especially with bye weeks coming up. Now is when depth is needed the most. So make sure you're diligent and you're working your waiver wire. But that's going to do it again. Once again for the Week 3 Fantasy IPA podcast. I want to thank everybody for listening. Make sure you're visiting us at the site. Make sure you check out the waiver wire column in written form. Make sure you are following us at fantasy_IPA. Follow Jamey at FIPA_black. That's FIPA_black. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, make sure you get you some IPA.
Adios.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy IPA podcast. Visit us at fantasyipa.com and follow us on Twitter at fantasy_IPA.
Hail to the king, baby.
To the house, baby.
Please subscribe and review at iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast provider.
Call truck. That's called truck.
See you next time, and until then, make sure you get you some IPA.
Come get some.
Get some. Get some. Get some.
We just want to say thank you for all the love.
And